Big changes that will impact the public safety and the pocketbooks of everyone in the state of Indiana.
That's right. Beginning tonight, the state's criminal code will change dramatically. It will mean longer sentences for some offenders and less prison time for others. RTV6 reporter Jack Reinhardt is here with the highlights of the pending changes. Jack?
Well, Raphael, the bottom line on the pending changes to the state's criminal code, judges will have more leeway in sentencing offenders for so-called lesser crimes. But more than crime, it's cost that's driving the change. Over the past decade, the state's prison population has grown by 40%. And without change to the penal code, officials say, in 3 years, the cost of incarceration will grow to more than $1 billion annually. Cost has driven legislative change to the criminal code.
The intent of the legislation is to see incarceration rates go down so that the DOC doesn't have to build more facilities to house men and women.
The biggest change to the criminal code reduces so-called good time, requiring offenders to serve 75% of their prison term instead of 50%. The most sweeping reform, according to county prosecutors, comes in the form of sentences for drug offenses. Convictions for dealing, possessing, and manufacturing controlled substances will now mean lighter sentences.
To the extent that it is apparent that drug offenses drive other crime, we feel that the reduction, sort of the general across-the-board reduction in penalties for drug offenses was not appropriate.
As of midnight, the state's prisons will no longer accept D felony or low-level offenders. Instead, they will go to county jails. With 75% of Indiana's county jails understaffed and another 35% over capacity, the state sheriffs have expressed concern about the strain on local resources.
With an increased population, potentially, that brings on a huge liability, not only to the sheriff, but the commissioners, the councilmen, and the citizens who pay the taxes.
Penalties for serious violent offenses remain virtually intact, with offenders now having to serve 75% of their sentences instead of just half. For the victims of violent crime, longer sentences will mean little.
They're going to continue to have to spend a lot of time working through the event that happened to them. They're never going to have closure from it. It's always going to be part of them, Jack. It's always going to be there for them.
Now, everyone agrees the new code will require careful tracking, but for now, no one has a crystal ball on just how this will all play out, whether it will reduce the state's prison population or overcrowd the county jails. Jack Reinhardt, RTV6.